Excellent. Well, first of all, I'd like to say a warm welcome and hello to everyone that's joined us this evening. We've had a few of these now, which have been really, really successful. So we think you're going to enjoy this evening with our partner at Latin Roots, Gaynor, who is the expert on South America.
Hello.
So she's going to take us on a journey around the continent. I know we're all really excited to learn about it. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. And I think she's got a super offer for you too. So I'm going to hand over to Gaynor now, who is going to, inspire us and take us away from the lockdown boredom.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joan. I'm just going to, everyone's muted, aren't they? Yeah, perfect. Lovely. Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us. So, thank you, Joan, as well, for asking me to do this evening. I absolutely love talking about South America and Costa Rica. So hopefully you'll enjoy it and it will inspire you. So just moving along, I'm just going to get to, gone too far. 1 second. Yeah, no. So once in a lifetime holidays, obviously everything that we're going to discuss today, you can book through the guys at Once in a Lifetime. So that's their contact details there and their web address. So please do contact the ladies there and they'll be able to assist you. And also, just as a thank you for anyone who just decided to book with us through Once in a Lifetime holidays, there's a voucher here as well, which I will put towards the end, just as a reminder, which is £100 per person on your holiday to South America. And that must be booked by the end of December. So that's just a little thank you from us to anyone that wants to inquire and go ahead and book. So who are Latin Roots? So we are 9 years old, we're award winning, we're now one of the UK leading tour operators specialising in just Latin America, and we are true experts and true specialists. So when Joan and the team speak to our reservation staff on your behalf, they're going to be talking to people who've travelled the continent extensively. So these guys have lived out there, they really know the inside and out of the continent. So you're in very, very good hands, and we're very passionate about it as well. And hopefully that'll come across in my presentation today. So what do? We basically tailor a holiday to your exact requirements. So anything that you want, from flights, international flights, obviously the starting point, accommodation from 3-star up to 5-star luxury, all your daily excursions, so be it treks, be it a city tour, booking restaurants for you, anything like that, we can build the itinerary to your exact requirements. Now, we do have a brochure, you can just see it there on the right hand side, which Joan and the team can order for you, and we also have an e-version of that as well. And in there are some idea itineraries as well. So if you're not quite sure what you want to do, say for example you want to go to Peru, we can guide you through on a highlights tour. So we give you some ideas, and I'm going to talk to you about a few of our newer itineraries in a second. We also have a small group escorted tours programme as well. Now that was launched in 2019, so last year in September we launched this brand new product that should have been our first year, and unfortunately COVID hit, so that didn't go ahead. But I'm really pleased to say that I think it's next week we're actually relaunching our small group tour. So I've got a little section at the end of the presentation just to talk to you a little bit more about what that involves. So let's look at when to go. So we have the continent there on the right hand side, that huge map. It's a massive continent. If, say, there was a flight from Colombia, the top of Colombia here, to the bottom, if you was to fly that was going to take you 12 hours. There isn't a flight, but that just puts into perspective how big this continent is. So if anyone out there is thinking of a 2-week trip and they want to take in Argentina, Chile, Peru and Brazil, that's not going to be possible. Well, it is possible, but you'll miss a hell of a lot. So hopefully, that just gives you an idea of how big it is. You can do a 2-3 week holiday in Argentina, Chile. Obviously, if you've got longer, then you can sort of do multi countries as well. So the green line that you see just there, that's the equator. And anything that sits on the equator and above, you can go any time of the year. Anything that sits below that, so sort of the Rio side of Brazil, Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, Chile, it's the opposite season to us. Now, there is an exception to that rule, and that is Peru. So the best time to go to Peru is between May and September, and that's because it's got 3 climate zones. So you've got quite a lot of variance in altitude in Peru. So the best time is definitely May to September. I was there 2.5 years ago at the end of May, and it was beautiful. And obviously people want to go to Peru and see Machu Picchu, which is a huge bucket list highlight there. So they want to go and visit that and have that beautiful clear view of the citadel, and that's definitely the time that you would travel. So obviously we're going to fly you there. We've got lots of different options for flights from Heathrow direct out to most of the main cities. The only 2 cities that are not served by Heathrow are Lima in Peru and San Jose in Costa Rica, and those direct flights are with BA from Gatwick. There's no direct flights to Bolivia or Ecuador. You would need to go via Europe for that. But we have lots of different options. So if people don't want to fly with British Airways, for example, we can take people out through Europe, through Paris, Amsterdam with Air France, KLM and other options as well. So that's just something that you can talk to the guys about. And then how to get around the continent. Well, you've seen how big it is. It's huge. So obviously on arrival into the countries, you're going to be met by our guides and drivers, and you're going to have a private transfer to your accommodation. We can do shared transfers if you wish to, and they're like small minibuses of up to about 10 people max. We recommend domestic flights within the continent. There's no train network. I don't know if anyone's seen or saw Race Across the World last year. It was based in South America, and you'll have seen a lot of the way that they travel was by buses, and they were long journeys. There was no real there was no trains involved along the way. It was all buses. So yeah, the train network is non-existent. So there's nothing like Amtrak, which they have in the US. It's all the tourist trains which are featured within Peru and Ecuador, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later on. So domestic flights within the countries are the best option. Or if you're in smaller countries like Costa Rica, for example, it's a great self-drive destination. So if anyone's a little bit more adventurous and wants to get off the beaten track, Costa Rica has some great areas to self-drive, as does Chile, Argentina and the Lake District area as well. So there's quite a few different options that we can suggest for self-drive holidays. We tend to find that people who want self-drive have been to South America several times before, and they really enjoy that off the beaten track, a bit more of the intrepid explorer that like a little bit something a bit different. So I'm just going to talk to you about 3 of our brand new itineraries, and these are sort of they've been designed to give the highlights of these countries. So great for a first timer going to the countries, or if you're a returning customer and you just want to see those same highlights again or just slightly different, then these are a great option for you. And they're really great prices. These prices are actually confirmed for the whole of 2021. So all you have to add on to these are your international flights. So for Costa Rica, for example, the price here is 1399. Flight prices can be £450 to £500 per person. So that's under £2,000 for a 12-day trip to Costa Rica. So on this trip, you're going to get to see the highlights of Costa Rica. So you're going to visit Tortuguero, which is on the Caribbean coast. It's a national park. There's lots of waterways. You've got it's great for turtles out there, spotting turtles. You're also going to visit the active sort of volcano area, Arenal, which is in the centre. You've got a lot of hot springs around there, beautiful nature walks. You can then cross the Lake Arenal that sits in front of the volcano and go to the cloud forest to visit all the different animals there, wild animals. And then you can end up on a beach and just relax in the national park of Manuel Antonio, which I'm going to show you pictures of later. So that is the Costa Rica one. Second one is the Peru Explorer. This is a popular, obviously a popular destination, and Peru is one of our top sellers. Land of the Incas, and this is priced at $1,999 per person. It's a 13-day holiday to Peru, and this is more for your culture vultures. So it takes in the fantastic capital of Lima. You've got lots of ancient temples that are right in the centre of the city. It's amazing to see. It visits the colonial city of Arequipa, which is known as the White City, due to the colour of the buildings and the stone it's made from. And that's the gateway to the Colca Canyon, where you can go and see the condors. You then have a trip to Lake Titicaca, which is the highest navigable lake in the world, and that's the gateway to Bolivia as well there. 3,900 metres it sits at, and you also get the chance to visit a set of floating islands called the Uros Islands, which I'm going to feature again shortly. You do a famous train journey from Lake Titicaca over to Cusco, which is the gateway city to Machu Picchu, and then you get to visit Sacred Valley and Machu Picchu itself, which you can see here in this image. The next one is the highlights of Patagonia, and this is all about dramatic scenery. And I was in Patagonia last year and it just blew me away. This takes you across 2 countries, so it actually features Chile and Argentina. So you get to spend time in Santiago, which is the capital of Chile. You travel down to the Torres del Paine National Park, very dramatic scenery, lots of amazing wildlife, things like puma, eagles, condors. You can then cross from a point in Chile across the Andes to Argentina, to El Calafate, and that's where you get to visit this amazing glacier that you see in this picture here. This is the Perito Moreno Glacier. And then you finish up in Buenos Aires and enjoy a tango show and life in Buenos Aires. So, and that's $2,499 per person. So just some ideas there, just to whet your taste buds. So just moving on to some extra information about the continent. There's no visa required for British passport holders, so you don't have to fill out any forms at all. Languages spoken, English is heavily spoken throughout the continent, but obviously most of the places are Spanish, apart from Brazil, which is Portuguese. And then I've just popped a little bit of a sort of how much is it to eat out guide for you, and that's an equivalent of a £25 meal in the UK. Ecuador and Costa Rica, as you can see there, it's a little bit more expensive than the other destinations, and that's because it's the dollar. Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Peru, Colombia and Bolivia are obviously cheaper. I mean, just to give you an example, I ate out in Peru quite a few times. We had a beautiful restaurant. We had a 3-course meal with wine, starters, a beautiful main sort of meal and a dessert, and it was about £16. So very, very reasonable to eat out. So let's move on to what the continent has to offer. So I'm going to start with the bucket list destinations. So you can see 4 images just here, and hopefully you'll have seen these before in brochures or on TV programs, or you'll know them anyway. So the top left is Iguazu Falls. The second one obviously is the Citadel in Machu Picchu. The bottom left is Easter Island, and then we have the Galapagos bottom right. So I'm going to start with Iguazu. And Iguazu is normally taken in with a trip from sort of Rio or Buenos Aires. You spend 1 or 2 nights here in this area. The flight from Rio is about 2 hours, 20 minutes, and Buenos Aires is 2 hours. It's a protected national park, put my teeth back in. And a lot of people think it's just one waterfall, but it's actually 275 separate cascades. Roughly it sits about 263 feet. It's absolutely amazing, across about 1.5 miles. So it's just beautiful to see. And there's walkways on either side of the falls. I'm going to show you a map in a second. Really stunning scenery. You've got jungle there, abundance of birds, monkeys, butterflies, flowers. I've just popped a little bit of information on there. The falls were at their fullest between January and March. I went in June and it was rainy, but the falls were amazing to see. Lots of places to stay. If you want to stay inside the national park, the closest to the falls is the Melia, or there's also the luxury Balmond das Cataras, which is on the Brazilian side, and you can literally walk out of the hotel and across to the falls. It's a beautiful property. Or you can do what I did and stay sort of 20-25 minutes away in the rainforest on the Argentinian side, and there's lots of different options of properties within the rainforest. Iguazu town itself, you can stay there. There's probably, I'd say, more sort of basic hotels there, sort of 3-star. There's nothing of a higher level, but it's so nice to stay in the rainforest. Or if you can, if you want to treat yourselves and stay at the Balmond, that's a fantastic option to do there. So this is the map of the Falls National Park. So you can see here on the left hand side, this is the Brazilian side. So the Das Cataratas sits just off map here, and you cross the road and it's literally down some steps, or there's like a little elevator that takes you down to the platforms, and you're looking back across over the falls. It's absolutely stunning. Or the main side is the Argentinian side. So what we'd say is you do half a day tour on the Brazilian side and you do a full day tour on the Argentinian side. And it's a series of different walkways, and you're literally on top of the falls, and the views are amazing. There's all these boardwalks that go through the rainforest. And then if you go this way where the little train is, this brings you to a point up here that brings you across a boardwalk and brings you to the Devil's Throat, which is the main surge of water. It's so powerful there, and it's just amazing to see. So it's just fantastic. If you stand as well in Iguazu town, you can actually see, because it sits on the border obviously of Argentina and Brazil, you can see Paraguay as well. So just some images there from when I went. So this picture here at the bottom left is actually the boardwalk on the Argentinian side, so you can see how close you are to the drops. It's fantastic. They do a boat trip that takes you under the falls, or you can actually do a helicopter ride. And if you can just see at the top here, there's the boardwalks just at the top that take you to the Devil's Throat. It's just phenomenal. And then just some more images here. So this is looking, the bottom left is looking back across the falls. It's absolutely stunning and definitely worth a visit. So moving on to Machu Picchu and Cusco. What you would do here is you would spend 3 or 4 nights in Cusco or in this area. You would fly into Cusco, which is the gateway city. It's a stunning city. I'm going to show you a video in a second. And you would just spend a day or two just acclimatizing, because it is at altitude, 3,300 meters. It's a beautiful city. It's easy to walk around, lots of things to do. You've got a cathedral there, and there's places to visit just outside as well. And then you would go off sort of day 2, day 3, off into the Sacred Valley, visit all the beautiful Incan villages, and then you do your trip to Machu Picchu. And I'm going to talk to you about different ways you can do that. So this was actually taken, I went 2.5 years ago. This was taken from my iPhone. So it's just a video just from a viewpoint above the city. And this viewpoint is actually a fort, an old fort that dates back to 200 AD. And it's called, I always want to say it the way that they say it, but I always have in my head the way the guide taught us. It's called Sacsay Huaman, or Sexy Woman, if you struggle to pronounce it. So the view is phenomenal. It takes you across the city. You've got snow-capped mountains in the background. I'm just going to play this for you now. Hopefully it'll play. And you'll be able to see me zoom in on the main square. And this is where the hub of the city is. It comes to life at night time. You've got a beautiful cathedral. It's very colonial. Lots of little cobbled streets going off, and the properties are all, the hotels are all close to the main square. It's a really great city to sort of base yourself in and walk around and experience it. So, I mean, it looks a massive city, but it really is great. We can do walking tours of the city. It's got a great historic centre. There's lots of, there's a chocolate museum. You've got a Pisco Sour museum. Pisco Sour is a local cocktail. It's like a little bit like brandy-based cocktail with an egg white. It's lethal. If you only have 1 or 2, you'd be hobbling back to your hotel, but it's definitely worth trying. So a couple of days in Cusco, lots of different options of hotels there, from 3-star up to 5-star luxuries. And then you would go off and visit Machu Picchu. So there's a couple of ways of doing that. You can take the train, which is what I did, and that goes from just outside Cusco, Poro Station, which is about 20 minutes away, and you jump on this beautiful train. We did Inca Rail first class that takes you through the valley, through all these beautiful Incan towns, amazing scenery, and 3.5 hours later, after a lovely light lunch and some light entertainment and taking lots of photographs, you end up in the town of Aguas Calientes, which sits at the bottom of the mountain where Machu Picchu is. So you can just see that at the top of the map just here. And then you have a walk around this lovely town, and you also have to jump on a little bus that takes you up a sort of one road in. It's like a track that goes up the mountain, very, very steep, to the gates of Machu Picchu. And you enjoy about 3 hours up there. You have to go up with a guide. You do need a permit, and we can sort all that out for you. And it's absolutely amazing. I'll show you the view in a second. The other way to do it is if anyone's really adventurous and wants to do the trek. It normally takes 4 days. It's 26 miles. It involves camping in the middle, hotel either side, but it takes you through the stunning scenery, high up along sort of ancient Incan paths, high into the mountains. And then it brings you out through what they call the Sun Gate, which is at the back of where the citadel is. So it's the view that you normally see from really high up looking down. And you come through this gate at sunrise. I haven't done this yet, but I really, really want to do it. It just looks amazing. But in saying that, the train journey is lovely. And there's different standards of the rail journey you can do. So we have Peru Rail, Inca Rail, and we also have the Balmond train, which is the Hiram Bingham, which is the luxury train. So, really great options to choose from. So just some examples here of the Hiram Bingham top left, and then this was our carriage on the bottom left there. That was the entertainment carriage. So we had a little Peruvian band playing in the background, enjoyed some drinks and a meal. The scenery in the middle, that's the Urubamba River running through the mountains, and then the right-hand side picture is Aguas Calientes, so a really pretty town at the bottom of the mountain. And then when you go up, that's the view that you get, that iconic shot. I must have taken that picture about 1,000 times. That's no exaggeration. Honestly, you have it all sorts of ways, with your arms up in the air, smiling, selfies, standing looking. It's just amazing to spend time up there and learn about, why and how they built it. The drop on either side is completely sheer. It's just amazing, to understand why the Incans built it. It's a lot of sort of storage houses and temples, and there's lots of llamas roaming around freely. It's just fantastic. And then if you see in the background, this mountain here, for any real adventure lovers, this is called Huayna Picchu, and there are 2 treks that you can do in the morning. I think one's about 6:30 and the other one's about 9:30. And it's called the Staircase of Death. And if anyone wants to Google it, please feel free to. And when you do, you'll understand why I didn't do it. It's just crazy. It's just these steps in the mountain, just a sheer drop on literally on the right-hand side. It's just crazy. So that is Machu Picchu. Moving on to Easter Island. So Easter Island is it's a Pacific island. It's very remote. It belongs to Chile. This is it here. So it's quite small. It's 30 kilometers by 22 kilometers. I think the measurements were. And it's famous for the Maui statue. So you can see the little sort of heads all the way around here. And these are where all the ceremonial grounds are. It's just amazing. And you learn all about the ancient traditions and culture. So this is a great side trip for 4 nights, minimum 4 nights. I did it in 3 when I went. And if you're doing a trip to Chile, it's definitely worth a side trip. So you would fly 5.5 hours from Santiago. The flight usually goes about 6 o'clock in the morning. So we would recommend an overnight there in Santiago before flying off to Hangaroa. So 5.5 hour flight is quite far. So you can see how remote it is in the middle of the Pacific. The next island across is Tahiti. So it is very, very remote. And then this is what it's like. So it's very traditional. It's a Polynesian island, but it's not what you would expect a Polynesian island to look like. So it's not got your gorgeous white sandy beaches and palm trees everywhere. There's the odd palm tree. It's volcanic. It's very traditional. Like I said, there's no McDonald's, no KFCs, nothing like that to see. And it's obviously famous for the Maui statues. And if you look here, so this, that to me looks like somewhere in Cornwall or down south, where you've got the moors and, in the background and the sea against the cliffs. it's just amazing to see, and it's crazy. You've got sort of sheep and cows and horses sort of roaming around. These statues are just phenomenal. You sort of learn about why they made them. The tribes did them, they basically built them. They took about 9 months to make, up at a quarry that they take you to, for sort of like a memorial for somebody who's died in the tribe. But they're thousands of years old. And there's a lot of mystery around how they moved the statues. So they were made in this quarry. These guys are huge. I mean, the one in the middle here is supposed to be about 87 tons. So how did they move that from the quarry to where he stands now on this column? So up until 70 years ago, there was no trees on the island, which is why it's so barren, I would say. So they think that they used the trees. So you learn all about that. It's quite mysterious to be there. And then this is the quarry where they made them. So you can see the iconic statue head sticking out of the ground. So it's as though they've just been abandoned, but they've slid into the ground. So if you dig underneath that, there'll be a full body underneath it, a full stone body. And then you can just about see on this bottom picture here that this one's unfinished. So this guy here should have been, I think, about 110 tons, they reckon. And then there's one sideways here, and they cut them out and then they move them off the quarry and out to different parts of the island. So it's really, really interesting when you're there listening to the guides tell you the history. There's a lot more about it than that, though. There's, amazing food. There's the lovely town of Hangaroa. There's volcanoes on the island. There's caves you can go and explore. Lots of walking, quad biking, horse riding. So there's lots of different things, but it's definitely worth a side trip. So that's Easter Island. Now, my Galapagos section is very small here because I've got it in my wildlife section later on. So another bucket list highlight is obviously the Galapagos, famous for all these different animals that you're not going to see anywhere else in the world. So that's just a little teaser, and I'll come back to it later on. So you're going to start your journey in one of these amazing cities. This is Santiago in Chile, beautiful city, quite a few different districts to explore here. I stayed in an area called La Estadia, which is it's quite a high-end area, so quite trendy bars and restaurants and little boutiques and little streets sort of going off behind the main roads, and some of the nicer hotels. But you've got areas like Barrio Bellavista, which is like the Bohemian Quarter, really quirky buildings. There's a beautiful hill that's got like a funicular train that you can go up called San Cristobal that gives you a view of the city. So there's lots of things to see, museums, art galleries, shopping, amazing food. But it doesn't stop there. Buenos Aires, top left picture of me, and that's my boss actually. That's the main square. So the building behind is the government building. That's where it's famous for Eva Perón doing her speech. You can get to go and see her tomb here. So this is Recoleta Cemetery, Eva Perón's tomb. The middle picture at the top is Cusco. So again, very colonial city, beautiful cobbled streets, museums again. This one in the middle is La Paz, which is the highest capital in Bolivia. That's got a crazy cable car system to get you around because it's so big. I mean, this in the middle here is all the favelas on the hillside. It's just crazy. And then you have the coastal city of Lima. So it's definitely worth a couple of days stay within these cities. Buenos Aires is one of my favourite cities actually in Argentina. It's got places like this. So, that picture before, you could see the government buildings in the background, but then 10 minutes away, you've got La Boca. La Boca is famous for Maradona. That's where he was from. It's the old Italian district. It's quite sort of quirky, run down cobbled streets, artists on the street, tango dancers outside the bars dancing to try and get your attention to go in. It's an amazing place. But Buenos Aires to me is the Paris of South America because it's got all these beautiful different districts. And then this is Lima here on the right hand side with its Valencia style balconies and the main square. So definitely 2 nights minimum in one of the entry point cities to stay at. And then you've got highlights there. Christ Redeemer in Rio, Sugarloaf Mountain. You've got Quito, which is Ecuador. That's the top left, where you can have a foot in each hemisphere. The north and south, it's where that monument marks the exact point where the equator is. So great things to do in these cities. You can watch a tango show in Buenos Aires or even in Uruguay. All these fantastic handicraft markets. This was one actually in Chile, but you have these in Bolivia, Ecuador, Peru, or you could book a cooking class or just have a little walk around the city. So there's lots of things to do. And then not far from these cities, you've got places like this. So top left is the Sacsayhuaman that I mentioned earlier, which is the fort. Then obviously that's the view. And then the country picture in the middle at the top there is the Pampas area. So that's an hour and a half drive from Buenos Aires into the countryside where the gauchos, the famous cowboys, are famous for. You can go and spend a day there. Or you can go and stay there for a few nights if you're into that. It's wide open spaces, beautiful estancias, and the gauchos on the working farms. And then at the very beginning, I mentioned the temples in Lima, which is in Peru, the capital of Peru. And this fantastic capital has got these ancient Incan temples in the middle, these pyramids. And this is an example of one of them. And this is actually a place called Huacapaclana, and it's right in the centre. It's an ancient Incan temple, and they've built a restaurant just at the side, so it all lights up at night time. It's amazing to see, and the food there is impeccable. It's just fantastic. Talking about food, which is my favourite subject. For the last 9 months, I've done nothing but eat, which, if you can't see my shirt at the moment, I struggle to fasten. But the food in South America is amazing. We've got fresh fish, steak, the best steak you're going to taste if you love meat. Amazing wine, white or red. They cater for everybody. So if you're vegetarian, you don't like spice, anything like that, they will cater for. The picture on the top right there is actually one of my dishes that I had a good few years ago when I was in Peru. And if anyone would like to guess what that is, it is guinea pig.
Oh.
So it's a delicacy in Peru, Bolivia and Ecuador. They farm them like we farm chickens, and I actually didn't want to try it, to be fair, because I have pets, but do you know what, it was delicious. And whilst you're out there, you've got to try these foods, they're amazing. So moving on to culture. Very, very different in all the different places. So Brazil has got a real mixture of cultures, from your indigenous Indians of the Amazon there on the bottom left, to your Africans up on sort of the northeast coast, like Salvador area, and then obviously Portuguese. They love their festivals, they love their carnivals. It's famous for sort of the Rio Carnival's the most famous one, which is the celebration before Lent. That's where you can see 70 samba schools take part in this amazing parade, each from sort of different tiny towns and favelas around the area. Amazing costumes, a real party vibe. Very, very busy at that time of the year, and does get booked up if anyone is interested in that one. So make sure you book early. Moving on to Argentina, it's a bit more refined, a bit more Western. The one culture that stands out, I did mention earlier, is the gaucho. That dates back to about the 18th century, and it's very similar to the Western USA cowboys, if you can think of them. They were skilled horsemen, they wear the traditional clothing, they're on working ranches. The towns that are nearby are very traditional as well. So it's a really great experience out in Argentina. And then you have my favourite, which is the Incan Empire, and this is Peru, Bolivia and Ecuador. It dates back to about the 12th century. They've got, some of their own languages. In this area in particular, it's the Uros Islands on Lake Titicaca. It's called Quechua. So, Spanish doesn't come close. The guides all speak the local language around there. It's all about the beautiful clothes. They're very proud of their history. And a little sort of unknown fact, or it might be a fact that people know, but it's great to put on a quiz if you're doing it, that they were the first people to cultivate the potato. So there's over 4,000 different types of potato in Peru. Very, very unique. I tried sort of several when I was there, and very, very weird tasting some of them, but it's amazing. And then the bottom left is the Uros people that I spoke about earlier. So this is a group of islands on Lake Titicaca. There's about 40 odd of these islands, and they're reed islands that float. So they're anchored down, and they have these people that just live on them. So it'll be a family. So dad will be president, and you've got mum, and then you've got the children that are either married, and then their children, and they have little huts around the edges, and then they have big logs in the middle where they sit, which is their lounge. It's just fantastic to see. And they wear these really vibrant, colourful outfits. These boats that you see here are their sort of cars or their Mercedes-Benz, and they usually have a puma head on the front, which is to do with their the worship of the god and their beliefs. I think I've got some pictures actually. Yes, I have. There we go. Those are some of my pictures. I won't ask you to spot me in the bottom right. I'll move along quickly, but you can get dressed up in their little outfits and buy their handicrafts. So it's really nice to see. And then Colombia. So Colombia's obviously got history with the Spanish dating back to about the 16th century. You've got, they're really sort of based their culture around art, music, theatre. So there's lots of things and festivals going on in Cartagena in Colombia. But then you've also got the Amazon as well. So you've got the indigenous tribes. And then on the Pacific coast as well of Colombia, because it's got two coasts, the Caribbean and the Pacific, you've got these indigenous tribes there as well that really interesting to see and how they live and fish on that Pacific coast. So lots of different options in Colombia. Moving on to the landscapes. So I'm going to start with Argentina and Chile. The reason for this is because as we go down from the north to the south, they mirror each other perfectly as you come down. So Chile is the long, thin country on the left. Obviously, Argentina's highlighted on the right. And then you have the Andes Mountains that break them through the middle. So top in the north with the top left picture, that's very much sort of the northwest Argentina. It's very arid desert. You've got huge red rock formations, steeped in quite a lot of history there, indigenous history. There's lots of ruins from ancient civilizations up there. You've got the beautiful colonial capital of Salta to visit. And then in Chile on the other side, you have the driest place on earth, which is the Atacama Desert. And it's like being on the moon, which my pictures will show in a minute. So again, red rocks, you know, lagoons, salt mountains, canyons. They've got this amazing little town called San Pedro Atacama, which is really quirky little town that you can visit up there as well. Lots of activities. You can do stargazing. They've got the clearest night skies. I did 2 hours stargazing at one of the observatories at the hotel we stayed at, and it was just amazing to just lie there and see these constellations that you didn't even know existed. It's just amazing. So that's the north. Then coming down to the picture on the right at the top, you have the wine region. So the wine region runs from Uruguay, which is this country here, right the way through the middle of Argentina, Mendoza, headed over the Andes, obviously into the Central Valley region of Chile. Rolling hills, you've got beautiful Andes in the background, fantastic vineyards, amazing wine. So this is where you could probably just chill for a couple of days before you go off and do any more traveling, or you could end your trip in the wine region if you wanted. You know, enjoy horse riding through the vineyards, cycling. A lot of the properties have pools. You know, if you go, the weather's great, obviously at the right time of the year. It's just a great place to just relax, and they have wine tasting with breakfast, lunch and dinner. So if you're a wine lover, it's the perfect place. I loved it. Moving down again, so the bottom left-hand picture is the Lake District. So you've got these beautiful mountains, some great ski resorts up there. We're not a ski specialist by no means, but if people want to do it at the right time of year, you can do. It's all about activities on the lakes, these beautiful sort of Swiss style or German style, that's the only way I can describe them, villages and towns that you can visit. It's a great area to do self-drive as well, the Lake District. So lots of different options there. And then the bottom right is down where Patagonia is. So that's where your glaciers are. So we've gone from dry to ice. You know, down there in Patagonia, you've got, you know, wilderness, wide open spaces, glaciers, fjords. It's just amazing. So that's how we sort of recognise Chile and Argentina with the landscapes. Just a few of my images here. Top left the lake there, that's the Torres del Paine National Park. And if anyone's heard of the Granite Towers, you can just see them peeping through the cloud. We were sat having a picnic and that was completely covered, and then it cleared, and we had an amazing view of the national park area, and that's just fantastic. You can do trekking up there as well. The picture with the house, that's the wine region, and then the other pictures are actually the Atacama Desert. You can see there, you know, you've got a volcano in the background, and the picture at the bottom, it's just like being on the moon. It's just crazy. You've just got, we did treks and it just went on for miles and miles and miles of nothingness. It's just fantastic. If you really love the outdoors, it's great. Bolivia is secluded and somewhat often underrated, I would say. It's often missed out on people's wish list for South America. I would say it's not the first place people visit. People tend to start with Peru, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and then your returning customer would go to Bolivia. So if anyone is on the call tonight who's been many times and hasn't done Bolivia, this is probably for you. It's an amazing destination. It's home to one of the largest salt flats in the world, the Uyuni Salt Flats. It's a prehistoric lake, about 11,000 square kilometres. You've got all these sort of lagoons with flamingos, you can see in the pictures here. It's great for photographers. You've got the world's most dangerous road, if anyone's seen Top Gear. I mean, look at that. How crazy is that? I don't know what these people are doing sat here, actually. You've got a train graveyard. So that graveyard's actually on the way to the Uyuni Salt Flats, so you can actually visit the train graveyard. And it's also the gateway to, obviously, Lake Titicaca as well, which I mentioned earlier, the highest navigable lake in the world. So you've got amazing cities along the edge of the lake, and you can go out and visit some of the islands as well. Peru we've looked at before, really, but this is just some images here. So obviously you've got these beautiful canyons, you know, Colca Canyon with all the terraces, the Incan terraces. You've also got the rainforest in Peru, top left there, and you've got the amazing city on the Pacific coast. Ecuador is quite varied as well. Usually the gateway to the Galapagos, but definitely not to be missed. You've got the Avenue of the Volcanoes there, which is a driving route. There's a great train journey you can do called the Devil's Nose train, which is literally a sheer wall, and the train just is built up into the wall. It's quite a scary but very interesting train journey. You've got the cloud forest, you've got the volcanoes, so you can do trekking, biking, so lots of activities there as well to do. And obviously it is the gateway to the Galapagos as well. Colombia. So Colombia is very diverse as well. People really kind of forget about Colombia sometimes as well. I mean, you've got these beautiful man-made lakes, which is the top left picture, and really pretty villages. This place is called Guatapi, which is east of Medellin. If anyone's heard of Medellin, it's the city that Pablo Escobar was famous for. It's also one of the most violent cities in the world, and is now one of the most innovative cities in the world. It's just crazy how it's turned it around. So this place is about an hour and a half drive from there, and it's a huge rock called El Peñol, and you can climb the rock and stand and look at these amazing views across the lakes. You've got the Pacific coast, you've got the Caribbean coast, you've got the coffee regions. So, you know, lots of different options there. And just some more images here, got the coffee regions. Oh, it's also got a desert as well. So you've got literally the Tatacoa Desert is right in the centre, so towards the south of I'm trying to think of the town, it's not far from you. You'd fly to a place called San Agustin, Neiva actually, and you'd go up, and it's just this, it used to be a seabed, the area, so there's lots of fossils in this area, but it's a really quirky desert. It's not like a desert you would imagine. It's got all these rock formations. It's quite an ancient sort of area to visit. And then you've got the coastal region as well. I mean, look at that, how diverse is that? You know, beautiful beaches on the Pacific coast, you can do whale watching, and that's just Colombia. And then, you know, after doing all that, so we've looked at the bucket list highlights, we've looked at the cities, you know, the landscapes, you know, visiting all these different places. It's got so much to offer. South America is so diverse. It's got everything that every other continent has got. you know, after all that travelling, can you have a beach holiday? Of course you can if you want to. Lots of places. So Brazil's got a huge coastline. You've got some beautiful little Portuguese villages and towns along the coast, or you can stay in one of the bigger ones, like Rio, for example, which Kim has been with me a couple of years ago to Rio. If anyone wants to speak to Kim about Rio, she is an expert. Copacabana Beach, very busy, very bustling, so very different to the images that we've just seen. A lot more going on in this city as well. You've got Colombia, which I mentioned before, has got the Caribbean beaches. So there are some islands actually just off Cartagena. So you could stay in Cartagena for a few nights. You could go for a full day out to these islands. They're called the Rosario Islands, or Baru, and they're beautiful, untouched Caribbean islands. Not like your St. Lucia's, your Barbados. It's a bit more rustic, but beautiful, beautiful beaches. Some more images. And then Costa Rica. So Costa Rica's got some fantastic beaches. This is actually Manuel Antonio, which was voted one of the top 12 beaches in the world a couple of years ago. It's a national park area, so there's no hotels built here. You have to travel in from the town, which is about 20 minutes away, and you're walking through the jungle, through, you know, past toucans, parrots, sloths hanging in the trees, out to this fantastic beach. I think we could all do with sitting on that beach right now. So those are your beaches, and then just moving on to wildlife. You know, if anyone really is into, you know, any type of wildlife, this is great. It's a great destination. So just starting with the Amazon, I would say that if you're into big sort of cats like your jaguars, your pumas, things like that, this is not the place. The Amazon, it's very condensed, so it's more about life on the river and life in the rainforest. So you can stay and visit sort of local communities, you can do cooking classes, you can do nature walks, you know, nighttime safaris where they'll take you out on the river and spot all the nocturnal animals. You can do piranha fishing, you know, swimming with dolphins, preferably not where the piranhas are. You know, lots of different options to do. And how you would do the Amazon is you would stay in a jungle lodge, or you'd do a river cruise. And there's lots of different options. I could sit and talk about it for another half an hour, but just so that you know we can do it, you know, Amazon rainforest, Peru, Colombia, Brazil, Ecuador, we can help. If anyone's heard of the Pantanal, this is very much like your safari trip. It's south of the Amazon. It is the world's largest wetland, and it's a great place to see or to spot jaguar. You'd stay on a lodge for maybe 3 or 4 nights, full board, and you'd go off and do game drives. It's an amazing experience, very, very remote, and it's all about back to nature. And it's great to spot, obviously, like I said, the jaguar, but that is only, I'm trying to think of the actual season. I think it's June to October to see them. That's the dry season, because obviously it's a wetland. You need to go when it's dry. And then moving on to the Galapagos. So 14 volcanic islands on the equator. You've probably seen many programs with David Attenborough, who's covered them. You know, they were discovered by Charles Darwin. You can do the Galapagos different ways. The first way I'm going to talk to you about is the boats. It's a bit of a minefield with the boats. There's lots of different options. So we have vessels that are sort of small that fit 12 people on, up to 100 people, and everything in between. So there's lots of different options. So it depends what you want. We can do high-end luxury like your Silversea and your Celebrity Flora, which was a new one that was launched last year. And the way you do this is sort of like a 5-day or an 8-day circuit, and you spend time on the boat and you'd visit different islands, and all these islands have got different animals on them. So you might visit one that's famous for sort of birds, you might visit one that's full of iguanas, and they'll talk to you about all the different islands, but there'll be a route that you do. We do have some specialists that work in our sales team that have been a few times, so do speak to Joan and the team, and they'll be able to speak to the specialists for the Galapagos. If you don't like going on a boat, then you can actually stay on the islands. And this doesn't mean that you're not going to see anything. We can take you out on boat trips, small boat trips, or around the islands themselves to different areas that will have all these animals. It's not like a safari where you have to go and really search for the animals. They're just everywhere. It's one of those places where you could be sat on a bench on Santa Cruz, and a sea lion will come and plop next to you. It's really quite intense with the animals. They're just not scared, and they're there everywhere. You can stay on 3 islands: Isabella, Santa Cruz and San Cristobal. The cruises go from Santa Cruz, and that's where the Charles Darwin Research Centre is. So you can visit there, you can learn all about the geography, all the different sort of community and conservation programmes that are going on as well. So lots of different things there. And, you know, Africa's renowned for the big 5. Galapagos has got the big 15. So you're going to see all these animals that you're not going to see anywhere else in the world. Costa Rica is amazing for wildlife. It's got 30 national parks. So it's inevitable that you're going to see wildlife. Famous for the sloths. If anyone knows, a little fun fact for you here, there's only 6 species of sloth, and there's 2 variants. There's 2-toed and 3-toed, and that's a little 3-toed one there. So lots of different animals to see in the national parks there. So bird lovers, you know, any wildlife lover will love it. Will love Costa Rica. It's a real adventure playground. And how will you know if you like it? Like I said before, it's got everything that every other continent has got. It's got it in one in South America. You know, if you've done Canada, if you've done the Rocky Mountaineer, if you've done North and South Island in New Zealand, you'll love Patagonia, Argentina, Chile. If you've done the markets and the towns of Cambodia, Vietnam, India, Thailand, you'll love the culture of Peru, Ecuador and Bolivia. Wildlife, you know, Brazil, Costa Rica, even marine life in Argentina. There's a place called the Peninsula Valdez in Argentina. You can see all the marine life there as well. And who should go? Well, I'm not going to point it. Anybody can go to the Galapagos, South America. Now, this next video that I'm going to show, we did sample it before. I don't know whether it's going to work. Now, it's just going to highlight our groups. Now, I'm sorry if you can't hear it. It's only about 1.5 minutes long, but it does showcase a little bit of Peru. So you'll be able to see the Colca Canyon, Arequipa, Cusco, and Machu Picchu. So just bear that in mind. And I do apologise if you can't see it. I think we're going to arrange for Joan to pop it out somewhere for you to see it if you want to. So this is to introduce our groups, our small groups tours. This tour was taken out before COVID. It was like our sample tour, and it was very successful. So the people that are talking are just telling you how wonderful it is, of course, you know, how well looked after they were. So hopefully it will work.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Eddie, come.
So I'm really sorry if you couldn't hear that, but that was an introduction to our small groups. And as mentioned at the beginning, they were launched last year. Our first departures should have gone out to Peru in May, but obviously COVID hit. They are now all COVID secure. All our ground handlers have got, you know, things in place to make sure that your safety is the main priority. Maximum number of guests on our tours is 16. They're fully escorted and they're guaranteed departures. So we're not going to ring you if there's 4 people booked on it. We're not going to ring you 2 months before and say, I'm sorry, it's cancelled, there's only 4 of you on it. What will happen though is that it won't be fully escorted. You will just be met in each of the destinations and you will be guided through. So you won't have an escort. If say there's 2 or 4 people on the tour, but there will be a guide in each destination. So it's still, you're still going to be well looked after if there's minimum numbers. So this brochure is actually being launched, hopefully, I'm right in saying this is next week. So Joan and the team will be able to pick that up, and I think we have got an e-version of that as well on your agent page, ladies. So the details, just to sort of help you along, is we have 9 itineraries, 6 countries, 3 multi-countries, and the first departures are hopefully going to go out in February to Chile. Prices range between 260 and upwards, and we've also got £200 per person off all the groups at the moment, and they all include international flights as well. Now you'll have to excuse the date on that because I didn't update this. I've just actually realised that I've not updated it when I saw the date. So that's been extended. So we have what we call a relax and book policy. And hopefully this will instill a little bit of confidence in you if you do wish to go ahead and book with us through once in a lifetime holidays. So, you know, any problems that occur with COVID again, we're going to waive amendment fees. We'll also waive the cancellation fees based on sort of Foreign Office advice. So if anyone wants to know a little bit more about that, we can get that sent over to the team. And there are the contact details again for the Once in a Lifetime Holidays team, the telephone number and the website. And just a reminder again there that we do have the